Trustee Reader.
Present.
Gilbert.
Present.
Baptist.
Here.
Gaines.
Here.
Mirandis.
Here.
Perez.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion?
So we.
Okay, a motion in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Agenda is approved. Trustee Smith, we need a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any conflict of interest today? On any items today? Probably not. Okay. Do we have any scheduled presentations?
No scheduled presentations.
Okay. Any public comment?
Haven't received any public comment prior to the meeting.
Okay, on to the general manager's report.
Let me catch up here in the presentation. There we go. One other thing, Rebecca says she can't hear the audio, so I just want to make sure. Or Gabe, can you?
I'm here now.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Rebecca. General manager's report.
Can I go back to, I don't believe it's conflict of interest, but I thought I was done with my client at 5311 Garden Highway. But he hadn't filed his permit from the flood board. So I did that for him. And I'm going to meet the inspector for one final inspection of the site on the 24th.
Yeah, so
I don't.
Trustee Smith, unless it's a item on the agenda specific to your client, there is no conflict of interest for the purposes of this meeting. So if there was something before this board in the future specific to endorsing a permit or approving or starting a notice of violation or something like that, that this board would take action on, then you may have a conflict of interest, which you would state. So for today, you're clear, but thank you for asking
And
that
I
question.
believe after the 24th,
Okay.
I'm done.
Yeah. And there's no problem. Sometimes we have other trustees that, you know, have a development agreement that they've been assisting on that will step out or identify the conflict. So if you ever have a question ahead of the meeting, you can always ask me, and I'll let you know if, and we can get an opinion from legal as well. So, yep. So back to the general manager's report, item 4.1. December was relatively light month in terms of administrative things going on. We did take the time, you know, the office is very, very slow, a lot of people on vacation and for the holidays. But we did take the time to kind of wrap up some administrative things that kind of been hanging through the year. So as I reported at the December board meeting, we're working on a number of RFQs that this board approved during the budget process and provided that timeline in December. We did that intentionally. I put some slack in the schedule anyway, but the RFQ for security services and our banking and investment services will go out on January 15th, which is Monday. We're finalizing, just going through, making sure that those RFQs are exactly how we want them to look. We've been working with TMBC and the water company on the security services RFQ. I received comments back from them that I incorporated into our document. So those will be circulated on January 15th. They're due back March 1st. Still gives vendors and contractors 45 days to generate a response. Most on the banking and investment side, they are well aware that this is coming. And we've had meet and greets that Jolene scheduled. So Jolene and I met with the banking institutions that we kind of handpicked because we want to know what was out there, local community banks and a couple of nationals as well. But obviously it will be publicly. And we got some good information from those institutions as well about putting information into our requirements for the RFQ, specifically security protocols, and really understanding what the banking security protocols are going to be and security for, you know, fraud and hacking. So anyway, that RFQ, Jolene and I will finish probably today, this afternoon. It's very close, and then it'll be ready to go on Monday. And then on the heels of that, we're working on our total compensation RFQ. And a few others for the timeline coming up, just to give us some time to receive responses. So I say all that to say this, on the review portion of the staff will do an internal review for those that meet the qualifications. And if there's a good separation and tiering of respondents, we will put forward 3 or 4, probably not 4, 2 to 3 for individual committees, the board committees to review and make a recommendation to the full board. So reference back to the timeline that was provided in the December board meeting. I can remind you of that, but we will be calling the committee meeting, specifically the financial committee, relatively soon. Well, soon meaning I think it's March 15th or so. That week of is our internal, we do the internal review after it closes and then turn over to committee. So look forward to scheduling, and I'll work with, depending on the results of item 6.1 today, those committee chairs. And I'll talk more about committee chairs' roles and responsibilities when we get to item 6. Other than that, the stormwater, and Gabe can speak to this a little bit. We did have some pretty heavy rains, but yeah, the pumping requirements, I do respect the request from Trustee Barandis and seconded by Trustee Abdis at the start of the flood season to provide timely updates. Once we do, so my plan for that request was to provide monthly reports, kind of in flood season that Gabe provides during the flood season. Once we enact our emergency action plan, my intent, if this is okay, was to provide a weekly summary every Friday if we are running pumps and enacting our emergency action plan. This is where the public's really going to want to know information from you. So my thought was to provide that on a weekly basis, either Monday or Friday. It may be both, to do a weekend recap once we start our emergency action plan, which is dictated by the elevation in the river. That's when people get really heightened and aware of what's going on. And if that's okay, that's what I would do. So for now, it's not that I've ignored the request, but there hasn't been much to report to this point, aside from our monthly board meetings. So is that okay with the two? Okay. So that's what I'll do. And then are there any other questions on the general manager's report?
The thing that I looked at was how many pumps we had working. Looks like we have plenty. So that was the review that I did. There's a few that we're not 100%, but look like we're 90.
We're still working with the Corps to get pumping plant 4 online, but just, and that's not necessarily the Corps. That was problems with our application to PG&E and transformer sizing and some miscommunication between the contractor, PG&E, and internal reviews. So that's just been delay after delay after delay on getting our PG&E permit approved. I do feel much more confident entering this flood season, and so far the first month and a half of this flood season as opposed to last. We did make it through the first of the year, where it was a big problem last year, where we had that big 200-year flood or rain event January 1st. So we're a third to almost halfway through the flood season. Long-term forecasts are favorable as far as flood control goes. We did get tremendous snowpack, so we'll watch for late spring warm rains, March, April timeframe that could really impact, increased runoff into the reservoirs. So we'll keep an eye on reservoir levels like we do every month, and then the daily forecast once we're more atmospheric rivers in. So I feel very confident. Always with aging infrastructure, there's always the risk that it's not a time or use component, but a long-term failure that's hidden beneath. But we made all the repairs from last year. Things are holding up, and we look forward to implementing our CIP as soon as the funding comes in. And then the second committee meeting is operations committee for the security services. So when that comes in, it's the same time frame, mid-March for interviews with the prospective firms. And part of that interview process will be inviting a representative from TNBC and the mutual company to perform those interviews. So operations committee, there's one other item that I want to work with the chair on. It has to do with our fleet and the mandatory all electric by 2035. We actually need to start implementing probably this year. And I have some thoughts I want to share with the operations committee on how we replace the fleet. Fortunately, we have approximately 12 vehicles to do. So basically 1 a year, maybe 2 a year, depending on funding availability. But for larger fleets, they're really facing a crisis, especially with manufacturing. So the earlier we get on our orders, the better we are to keep pace with that. and be, again, a leader in our demonstration of a quality organization. So any other questions on the general manager's report?
What do you think, Cybertrucks?
Actually, so Jack, Gabe's doing his analysis now. As weird as that sounds, that probably will be staff's recommendation. And we're going to go visit Tesla next week down in Modesto, and I want to share that information. I am concerned about public perception of that and the cost, but the benefits. So we weigh that, and I want to share that with ops committee and get your recommendation. So it's not just staff saying we want Cybertrucks, because it has that connotation. So.
Yeah, I would have concerns about that.
Yeah.
And that the vehicle has to fit the application.
That's right.
There's not a wide selection of electrified light duty trucks.
There's
Yeah.
3.
So
So we'll get into that. And what I'd
Again,
like to do
just my 2 cents that you brought up.
is do some piloting, before we roll it out to our entire fleet and relying 100% on electric as emergency responders. I have some significant concern.
Yeah.
We are working with SMUD and PG&E to use some of our facilities to host a charging station as well. So whether it's at the courtyard or whatever, but we would have our access to charging stations and hopefully through a grant. So we'll share that with ops coming pretty quickly here.
Kevin,
I have the same concern.
our fleet has pretty much been updated in the last 3 to 5 years. Is that true?
It has been, however, regardless of what an infrastructure is, car is a thing, it's new law, and we have no choice but to follow it.
Right, I understand that part.
But yeah, so 2018 and newer is the medium duty, which is 86 number, 86 number pound DPW car. But this regulation falls from 86 all the way up to past 26. So it's everything from a 250, F-350 up to our heavy hauls.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be replaced in 2039.
Yeah.
Which we have time,
Right.
but you don't want to stack them on top of each other, so you have,
So the option is do it, affordably, progressively, so you don't have this huge expense in 1 year, right? So start planning for that, and it actually spaces out the future replacement of those vehicles as well. Instead of doing 10 a year, you can do 1 every 10 years. So
Right, that's-
we'll share all that detail. Gabe's been, in fact, over the Christmas break, he spent a lot of time researching this very topic. So looking forward to that. And yes, it's unfortunate that a lot of our fleet has turned over, but I can tell you what, the vehicles that our new fleet replaced were well over time, just like.
No,
the rest of our
my point is that
infrastructure.
there's nothing risky right now as it relates to our fleet. It's
Yeah.
That's
running and
That's
great
right.
job.
We're in
Okay.
good shape.
And we can still get good resale value on the resale market for those vehicles because they're still available. So
On to the operations manager
Yes.
report.
So that I'm clear, this is mandated.
California. Arizona.
How close are we in the category of emergency vehicle?
Police, fire. essentially.
Which is funny in the
Very-
legislation.
yeah, the regulation.
And they need to be. So we're close. Okay.
close, but no cigar. So all of that information we share with ops, and we'll probably come back in February if we have a recommendation, February, March. So no other questions on GM report. We'll move on to operations report. Gabe?
Yeah, so for the most part, it's kind of business as usual. Homeless accounting removals, posting, so we're still working on that. They tend to accumulate in the same spots throughout the year, so essentially we just posting and living a couple weeks later. So we do have some postings, this posted in December, so we put up some January, so business as usual there. Emerald Site Services did finish up the vegetation removal on Garden Highway, all the way down to the Garden Connector on the water side. Looks great. Staff can really deal with the rock silt protection and all weather access around some AB and then rip wrap on their drainage down there. So that's been going well, really, really good. And as Kevin mentioned, a lot of my time has been spent this last month or so on the new regulations. Trying to figure out what we need, what best suits our district, and there's very few options right now for electric vehicles, but I think as the time, as we go down, towards 2028, I think a lot of vendors or makes will produce more electric vehicles, especially on the heavy side. Chevy, Ford, and Tesla are the only 3 truck manufacturers that are electric. That would be right? There's operating there written on, but so yeah, I'm working on a presentation to kind of present to you all what my thoughts are and how we can go about complying with this regulation, but there's a lot to it. not personally, but they have new regulations on testing for emissions on the lower side. So there's a lot going on in the car world that we're having to deal with right now, but I'll present that to you in the next few months. I think other than that, that's pretty much it for me.
Just real quick, I do know that one of our trustees has a relatively tight time frame today. Do we have till 8:30? Is that correct?
8:30?
Yeah, okay. So any questions for Gabe on that?
Okay, one question on the clean on the garden alleys, the website. What's the criteria about which trees you have to say?
So we don't remove any trees, we just trim. And typically it's 4 inches and below we can remove. But for that area, we just trim the trees, the low hanging trees, and then remove the vegetation on the slope. So that's all we typically do, no matter where we're at, 4 inches and below if we have to.
The limbing up is similar to what you would do for fire protection. And so that provides the visibility and provides the fire block as well. So we limb up, and Emerald went pretty high this year and it looks fantastic. I talked to Chris Leaf at the flood board and we're going to have him out for a tour once things dry up a little bit, to show him as a demonstration. They've invited me to present on some of this information for a workshop that they're going to do. So yeah.
Good.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you.
Second one, just quick thing, at the last meeting you mentioned that spreadsheet we had that showed the cleanup activity we're doing. We were thinking about posting it on the website so that we can direct people to it. Have we done that?
Well, no.
Yeah.
I might have forgotten about that.
Okay.
I see a lot of things I forget sometimes.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll get on that.
I can say, make somebody write it down.
Well, I have the notebook out of case. So yeah, we'll get that done. We have been working, in fact, we ran into Roland Brady, who does the coordination for the River City Alliance, River City Water Alliance. I've seen him twice here in the last month cleaning up with volunteer groups, and asked them if they need support or whatever. So we actually fed them lunch here at the office after they were doing a cleanup right there at I-5 overcrossing. So he was very thankful. That's one of the areas is like the food, and that's the one area that always gets cut in their budget, but they have done an amazing job. And I got some video that we'll share online too. So on to general counsel's report, Rebecca.
Good morning. It's been a little bit of a quiet month, so excuse me, I'm on the road, so pardon me for the road noise too. It's been a quiet month. We've done a little bit of support for various permitting issues, but other than that, nice and mellow, which is how we like it for you guys as you start out the year.
All right, Rebecca, thank you. One thing that Rebecca and I have been working on in the last week is permitting for Lakeside at Center Point. I approved the Mylar drawings yesterday for this sewer main for that development. And then also we're the lead applicant in a 401 and 404 permit for Lakeside at Center Point for the G2 outfall, which is an outfall structure into one of our drains. As a public agency, it's a lot easier for that developer. So we have a form of agreement between the developer and us, and we're the lead applicant on that. They're going to do all the legwork and respond to the 401 and 404 requests. So I signed that yesterday as well, and that was Bob Shattuck and working with him. And so we got that done, and we're moving forward. So thank you, Rebecca, for finishing that up.
Okay, on to the consent calendar. Can I get,
Approval, consent.
okay, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, consent calendar passes. On to 6.1, committee assignments, review and consider approval of board committee assignments for 2024. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to the staff presentation.
Yeah, so thank you. Every year in January, we, as a board, you as a board assigns committee assignments. This is the recommendation from President Lee Reeder, and I understand that there's been consultation with the committee assignments, and everyone, my impression is that is okay with the assignments. There is some moving around, so read this chart carefully. This is what I believe the latest version. Moving into committees, and so there's a number of ways that we've handled committees over the years. And with this board in particular, the way I've been handling committees is kind of on an as-needed basis. There are some committees that meet more regularly than others, but I do want to meet with the committee chairs individually after the committee assignments are done, particularly committees that don't meet more frequently. I know during around this time last year, during my evaluation, there was a suggestion to have quarterly meetings. Particularly for operations, and we haven't done that yet because there's not been a lot to talk about. So scheduling committee meetings is difficult with everyone's schedule, and I don't want to call a meeting just to call a meeting. So, but I do want to respect the board and their desire to have check-in and know what's going on more in depth, the role of the committee. So I will work with the individual committee chairs to determine the schedule, and then obviously there are some needs to call meetings off schedule. If the desired chair wants to meet on a set schedule, we can certainly do that and cancel the meeting if there's nothing to talk about, but at least we'll get them on the calendar. So the chairs will typically dictate the time and place of the meeting and date. That I give them that latitude, and I hope that's okay with the rest of the board and committee assignments. But the chair is really the person that I work most closely with to set the committee meeting date and time. So if you are a chair, look forward to in the next week or two a phone call conversation from me, or we can set up a quick Zoom to determine how you want your committees to run for 2024. And I hope that's okay, and just some clarity on that. But we do have a lot of committees coming up with budget preparation starting in March and with the RFQs. And so the first part of this year will be a little bit busy. As well as kicking off an election for this fall. So legal committee and outreach committee will have some role in our Board of Trustees election as well, and determining the outreach effort that we want to do, as well as the legal requirements to do so. All right. So with that, that's in the staff's presentation. I don't believe there's any public comment on this item. And so at this point, I'll turn it back over to the board for discussion.
Okay. Any comments?
Did I get it right? Yes.
That's
it.
Sorry,
Okay.
I had to double check it on my phone.
Thank you. I
was-
think that was the last word.
Well, I think that works because everybody has a certain time allotment, and it should not be standardized, especially when some are more busy than others. And some committees will need more attention this year, like operations and personnel. So thank you guys for your commitment to our board and taking on leadership roles. I really appreciate that, especially you and Tom for stepping up to chair. I really appreciate that.
One last thing on scheduling, obviously we're not in a state of emergency. So all of our meetings, whether it's a board meeting or committee meetings, are in person. We do still have the ability with the modified Brown Act requirements to have remote participation, but we still need a quorum within the district. And I would just need enough time on a committee to post the agenda accordingly, right?
So the committee has still a public meeting or it's only 3 members?
That's correct. They're publicly noticed, and we typically don't have public here that attend the committee meetings, and we don't record them. We take minutes, but don't record them. However, they are public meetings. Yeah.
I'll move the recommended assignments.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Real quick, who was the second? We have a motion from Abdus, second from Perez. Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Item is approved. Okay.
Everyone's favorite topic.
Closed session now? Oh.
Yeah. So the last thing before adjournment is the committee reports. We just had one committee, this item 7.1, and that was the executive committee to go over the agenda for today. And then I always give a general manager's report during that executive meeting just to talk about general district topics. So that was performed in last Wednesday. And if there's no other comments, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can I get a motion? Okay, second. All those-
Motion by Baines, second by Smith to adjourn.
okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Adios. See you guys next month.
Almost a record. Almost.
Yeah, it's close. Love it. Thank you.